Alright, I want to show you how to do a pigtail. This is, these are about 12 bucks. They're strippers these are Klein, I like Klein. They're about 12 bucks at Home Depot. Screwdriver with the bigger end. I think these are about 8 bucks at Home Depot. You can use whatever one you want. I think this is number 3. It's a bigger end. This is just 5 inches of 14-2 wire, and you can see I've got a whole bunch of them here because I'm going to do 50 of them. And then I've got 14 gauge wire, solid copper. You can buy it at Home Depot. For a whole spool, it's like 40 bucks for 250 feet, I think. It might be 500 feet, I don't know. But anyway, I usually cut these at about a ½ inch longer because we're going to curl them. So these are about 5.5 inches. These are about 5 inches. It really doesn't matter. Whatever you're comfortable with. That's just the way I do it. What I do is, and I usually do this is more of a, I'm just going to show you how to do 2 of them here real quick. But I usually do it like a, kind of like a factory thing. I'll do all these and I'll do all these. But anyway, I'm going to show you how to do this real quick. So what I do is just take the piece of wire and I push it in here, and then I pull out this, and then I just take the copper piece, which is just in paper, right, and then I throw it away. So then I have these 2 pieces, and then I throw this away, the covering, and then I have these 3. So that's what we're wanting to do. So you got your ground, you got your hot, and you got your neutral. So your ground would be green, your hot would be black, and then your neutral will be white. So for the ground, what I do is I take off about this much. I don't know what that is. If it's, I guess it's about 1 inch, maybe a little bit more than 1 inch off each side. And it always looks like it's a little bit more than I thought it was. Should be, but anyway, so it's about that much. And then there's a couple different ways to do it. I'll show you both ways to do it. So I just curl it like this, and then put it on the ground here. And then if you use this thing here, you can just push on it and kind of get it tight. See? Then I'm going to keep it in tension here so it stays on the screw really good while I screw it in. And then I screw it in with a screwdriver, and then I push this part up to make it straight up. Then you end up with it like this. Okay, and then the screws on the side, there's gold screws and there's silver screws and there's a green screw. Of course, the green screw is the ground, and the gold screws are for the hot, so that would be the black wire, and then the silver screws is for the neutral. So I like to remember that black likes gold. So you got the third one up here, which is 14, which is what I like to do. And I like to take off about like that. Say it's about 1 inch on each end. And then same thing on this. And that would be for your hot. And so then I'm going to do the same thing for the white, which would be the neutral. And like I said, I usually do this kind of like a factory thing or whatever. So I'll do all these like at one time. But you can do them one at a time. I just do them while I'm sitting watching TV or listening to my computer or whatever. So anyway, then I pick up both of them, and the black needs to be in the gold. And because you use 14 gauge wire, if you use 12 gauge wire, then you wouldn't be able to do this. But if you use 14 gauge wire, 14 gauge wire will fit right into the push-ins. So if you do the push-in here, and then you do the push-in there, and see, then you end up with, they're about the same. And it really doesn't matter that much, but usually most people in the U.S. like to put the plug in this way. They actually say it's better to do it this way, because then if something hits it. But anyway, most plugs are this way in the U.S. That's the way they're installed. So you'll have your ground at the bottom, and this is a 15 amp plug, and 14 gauge wire goes to a 15 amp plug. And what normally happens is you have a 20 amp breaker that goes the entire room, which is typical. So a lot of times they'll put the whole room on one breaker, which is what I like to do. And then, unless you have electronics or something special that you want to put a separate breaker in, but the whole room will go from plug to plug to plug. It'll be yellow 12-2 wire, which is typical, and the white wire is 14-2. And this is about $47 a roll, I think, right now. And the yellow wire is about $72 a roll. These are about 50 cents a piece. They come in a box. They're about $5, maybe $5.50. And I buy them. You get maybe a 10% discount when you buy them by the box. So I'll buy 10 boxes of these, which will be 100 plugs. So that's how you do it. And then I just take a Home Depot bucket, and I'll do 50 of these at a time, and I'll just throw them in a Home Depot bucket. And then when I go out on the job, I won't have to do this. I'll just take the lock nuts and do it. Now, why do you use pigtails? You don't have to use pigtails. You could go to the top screw and then the bottom screw. And you go to the top screw and then the bottom screw to the next plug. But if you use pigtails, what you do is you take the wire coming in and the wire going out, and you pigtail them in the plug, and then you push this back in back into the socket. Now, why would you do that? Well, the reason you do that is because, like a Christmas tree, if one light bulb goes out, then the whole strand, everything after that will go out. So you have to find the light bulb that's out. Well, the same thing will happen if this plug goes bad. Let's say somebody sticks something in it, or they plug something in it, burns it out, whatever happens. And then the rest of your room will go dark. Maybe your light will go off, because a lot of times the light will be the last thing. So what happens is that if you pigtail them, the wire comes in, the wire goes out, and then this plug's like this. Well, the wire back here going in and out is still plugged in, so this plug would go out, but everything else would stay on. So that's why you would pigtail. And plus, too, just by practicality, doing it or whatever. So it might be easier, or it's just by convention, I guess, also too. But anyway, so that's why you do this. So I'll take this and I'll throw it in a bucket. I'm going to show you another way to do it. We'll show you another way to do the green. And some people do it like this. So you cut off a little bit, and then they make this to where, see, I didn't make a loop this time, so this time I'm going to take it and I'm going to hook it right here. I'm going to hook it right here on this tab here, and then I'm going to use this to hook it. So I'll hold it up and I hook it around, okay, and so I keep pushing on it till it gets it hooked really good, and then I do it. So that's another way to do it, that you don't have to use and then if you don't have a pair of cutters like this that has the little thing there, then you can do it like that. Just make sure it's tight, and make sure you get the screw tight so that you don't have a problem out in the field. And then I like to push on it and get it straight up like that. And then we'll just do this again, so I can just show you again, so you've seen it twice instead of once. And pull the black wire out, and then come out, white wire come out, throw the rest away, and then get about an inch off on each side. In this case, it pulled the wire out. So this goes in. This goes in. I think it's a little bit long. This goes in the silver side. And usually when I got them all set up, I'll do them all at one time. So I keep them all in a row. So I gotta do something wrong. It's just when you're doing it like a factory or whatever, like an assembly line. That's what I wanted to say. And then same thing with the black. And then I just think of black like gold, white's like silver, and then of course the green is, see it's green, it matches. The green is brown, and that's pretty typical. So again, these are 15 amp breakers. They're on a 15 amp plugs. They're on a 20 amp breaker. You have a bunch in serial, and then that's how you basically wire a room to a house. Now the only thing that you have left with the house, for the most part, is, well, there's a couple of different things. But normally an electric stove is a 50 amp double pole breaker, and then and so I normally use 6-3 wire, and 6-3 wire is it's a little bit expensive, but you can buy 150 feet, or you can buy 50 feet at Home Depot in a spool, and it's about $3. I want to say $2.50 to $3 a foot. So it's kind of pretty expensive. But then the other thing that you have is, and that's a 50 amp double pole breaker. And I usually use a GE box, load box, just because they're easy to find and they're easy to buy breakers for. So that's what I do. And then your hot water heater is 10-2 wire, so it'd be 10-2 wire, and it's on a 30 amp double pole breaker. And that's how you'd wire your hot water heater up. Then the other thing that you normally have in a house is a dryer plug, and it's 10-3 wire, 10-3 wire. So you have a stove that's 6-3, you have a dryer that's 10-3, and then you have a water heater that's 10-2. And then pretty much everything else in the house uses 12-2 wire, which is 12 gauge wire. And then whenever you're going to terminate, like these are 15 amp plugs, so you can use 14 gauge wire, and so that's why I have the white wire here to use for this. And then another thing that I do is I go to a plug for a light. I go to a light, and I'll go to a light, and then from the switch, I'll go to the light, and I'll use 14-2 wire. And you can do that because as long as you don't go from the light to something else, the light is the terminal thing. You could even do that on the very last plug, but I wouldn't do that. I would always use 12-2 on the plugs. But that's essentially how you wire a house. Your outside disconnect for your HVAC, you'll have to look at that, but I think it's normally a 30 amp breaker, double pole breaker. It might be a 40 amp, but you'll have to look at that. But that's typically what you find in the house. Now, a couple other things when you're doing wiring in the house. You have GFI that needs to be over the countertop. So when you go you take 12-2 wire and you run to the countertop. And normally regular plugs we put at the bottom of the box. The box is 4 inches, so at the bottom of the box is 12 inches. The top of the box is 16 inches, so that's typical what you do for the plugs. And then you'd set them like this, so that would go all around the house. And then for plugs, a room, typically 3 feet from a corner or a wall or a beginning of a wall, you need to have a plug, and then every 6 feet after that. But of course, depending on what you're doing, you might want to have other plugs. So for instance, if you're going to have an office, you want to have a separate plug just for your office office computer stuff that would be on that separate breaker. In addition to what you run for the room, you wouldn't want to put it on the same thing. I mean, you can, but I mean, typically that's what you do. I put a lot of window units in places that I have. I do a lot of somewhat substandard stuff, and then for window units, I've gotten to the habit where I run a 12-2 or a 20 amp breaker, just at 12-2 wire, just for the window unit, in addition to the room. In addition to the one breaker that goes to the room, and that way you have a room that has one breaker or whatever. So, like I said, these plugs go at the bottom of the plug. It's a 4-inch box. The bottom 12 inches, the top 16 inches. I like to put switches at about 53 inches, and actually 52 inches, I think. And then, so that'd be the bottom of a switch. Instead of 12 inches, it would be up on the wall, so it would be 52 inches. The top would be 56. And then over the countertop, if you're doing it from the floor, it's about 43 inches to the bottom, which ends up being about 8 inches off the countertop. So the countertop's about 35 inches. You got a 34-inch cabinet, which is typical, and then by the time you add the countertop, it adds another inch. So if you put the refrigerator at the same height, 43 inches, and then the washer can do the same thing. Now the washer, a lot of times I use just by convention, I use a 20 amp plug, but everything in the kitchen goes on a separate breaker. So you're going to have a vent-a-hood that's on a separate breaker, or a microwave that's over the stove. The stove's 30 inches, and you'll have a cabinet. Now typically what we do is, depending on what your kitchen layout is, your cabinets, we buy pantries a lot of times. The pantry is 84 inches, so we run the cabinets starting from 84 inches down. And so over a stove, you have 12 inches, a 12-inch, 30-inch cabinet. 12 inches comes down. Anyway, then you put the vent-a-hood after that, and so you would do that. Now the stove can be mounted close to the floor. And like I said, the washing machine or refrigerator could be at 43, plus all the plugs that are over that go over the countertop. Now the first plug on the countertop needs to be GFI. The rest of the plugs are GFI because the first one was GFI. So you just need to buy one GFI plug to go there. Same thing with the bathrooms. The plug needs to be a GFI, the first one. And you can run, since there's only usually maybe one plug or two plugs in a bathroom, you can, upstairs you can go over to the other bathroom and it can be on the same GFI if you want to. If you want to run it on a separate breaker, that's okay too, but a lot of times you only have one plug in the bathroom and then you can run it to the other plug. So if I have a bath and a half, I usually just run a wire over to the other bathroom, and the main bathroom has the GFI. You can kind of do that however you want to, but anyway, that's what I do. Let's see, what else? The dishwasher needs to be on its own plug. Sometimes we'll run on its own breaker. Sometimes we'll run the garbage disposal plug on the same breaker as the dishwasher because they're usually right next to each other, and so that's okay to do. I don't know what specific codes are wherever, but that was typically done for many years, and then that's perfect what I like to do. I've did that in most places that I have. You can put it on a separate one if you want to. That's up to you. But let's see what else. The dishwasher is 24 inches, so when you go to you have the location of the dishwasher, just know that if you're trying to locate the plug, and you can put the plug, a normal available 12 and 16. And sometimes they hardwire the dishwasher, so yeah, I like putting plugs on stuff because I end up pulling it out and redoing it. Same thing with the vento hood. I usually make a pigtail and I'll make a plug. I usually don't hardwire it. A lot of places do. To me, it's easier just to go ahead and make a plug it in. But that's up to you how you do that. Let's see what else. Usually a dryer is about 29 inches wide, and the plug for the dryer can be where it's easy to access. There's not really a code for that. I mean, up at the washing machine, the same as the kitchen, 43 inches. It's not really any code. It just needs to be below the height of the washer, So, washing machine's usually about 27 inches wide, and so that kind of gives you an idea. So that's what you're looking at. So that's how you do pigtails.